Welcome to Life is Meant to be Lived, the podcast. I am so excited. I've got a very special guest on today. This is Tessa. Me and Tessa have not known each other very long, but she has already become so special in my life, and I love her dearly already. Tessa is a 23-year-old graphic designer and survivor of cystic fibrosis, a genetic chronic lung disease. This experience has shaped her resilience, perspective, and passion for meaningful work. And like you already probably know, I also have cystic fibrosis. And so it has been so fun to get to know Tessa and kind of be able to relate on that level with each other. So, anyway, Tessa, will you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself? Kind of when were you diagnosed? How? Maybe a little bit about your sister would be kind of fun for people to listen to. Just kind of give us your backstory before we jump right in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, I love Molly so much. And I'm just so excited. This is like the coolest thing that you're doing, and I think it's just so special. I think it's going to really help people. So thank you for having me on. This is going to be fun. So yeah, I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when I was 2 years old. And they didn't detect it in me until I was two. Back then, I was born in 2002. There was no newborn screening yet in the state of Utah. And so I was very malnourished as a baby. They couldn't really figure out what was wrong with me, but I would retain a lot of weight in my cheeks, so I looked healthy. And so the doctors would always just say, well, she looks healthy, so we'll just keep going. She's just not putting on a bunch of weight, but sometimes babies just struggle. They just thought that I was basically going to
Right.
be like the runt of the litter. And until 2 years later, my little sister Eliza was born. And immediately after she was born, she was not retaining oxygen. So they life flighted her to Primary Children's Hospital, where they found that she had cystic fibrosis and she had to undergo like emergency surgery. And it was a whole ordeal to figure out
Wow.
what was wrong. And so the doctors went out to my parents and they said, are there any other siblings? Because my parents at that point had 4 kids, and it's a
Wow.
disease, so it affects 1 in 4. So they said there's a chance that one of your other kids, one of your other girls has this. Has anybody shown a failure to thrive? And my dad said that his heart just dropped and immediately he knew, yeah, one of them for sure. So they tested all of us. Finally, my failure to thrive was discovered, and they found after that I had just not been, because we can't break down our food and digest our food as easily. I had been eating like I was hungry, but nothing was, I wasn't retaining any of it.
Right.
So that kind of threw off a lot of things just with my upbringing, because I went so long without any sort of medication for it and no breathing treatments. I
Mhm.
was I was pretty sick as a kid, but eventually my body was able to catch up and now I've been healthy. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Your poor parents were probably like,
I
"Oh my
know. You
gosh."
traumatized them a little bit, yeah.
I know. I'm sure I'm sure it did. So, what was that like growing up with a sister with cystic fibrosis? Because 'Cause I'm sure many of our viewers have probably seen the whole 6 Feet Apart show and, things like that, and my family chose I'm the oldest, and I found out right at birth. I was failing to thrive even in the womb, and so they kind of were able to they were able to check me for that, and my family went the adoption route, so both my siblings are adopted for fear of risk that one of my siblings, if I had biological siblings, would have it. So what was that kinda like growing up with a sister with cystic fibrosis? How did that affect you 2?
It was so interesting because I kind of forget when I meet other people with cystic fibrosis that that's not the norm. Seriously, I mean, we grew up doing treatments together. We would wake up in the morning early together. My dad would carry both of us into, like, we called it the treatment room, which was basically like a spare bedroom, but we would do our
Yeah,
treatment in it.
yeah.
And so I never really noticed much of a difference, in both of us. It was just like we got to experience this little thing together. And it never really occurred to me that a lot of other people don't have to do that, I think it
Right.
gave me a false sense of, well, people just do treatments, and that's
Yeah,
my sister and I
yeah.
do it, I didn't really feel like an outlier.
Yeah.
It was interesting growing up because, I mean, as you know, Molly, I'm not sure if everybody is aware, the reason we can't be within 6 feet is because we can potentially pass on bacteria that only our lungs are susceptible to. So there were moments where she would get a lung infection or I would get a lung infection, or more likely and more common was when one of us would get sick. When we get sick, it embeds itself a lot deeper into our lungs, so we were a lot sicker. So it was a lot scarier when one of us got sick, especially because we were the two that were just conjoined at the hip. Like we were best
Right.
friends. So my parents got really nervous. And I remember every time one of us would get sick and recover, we'd go and ask our parents every day, can we hug each other now? And we weren't even like the biggest huggers,
Gosh.
but we would just miss hanging out so much that it was so exciting when one of us would get better and be like, we get to hug each other, and yeah, so
That's so
it was
sweet.
sweet. Like, it was sweet, and we got to do all our doctor's appointments together. So while there was some scariness, and I think especially now that I'm older, I can comprehend just how scary that can be, especially when one of us would fall victim to kind of a worse lung infection like Pseudomonas or something that requires some
Right.
extra treatment time, and extra antibiotics. But for the most part, like just in general, it was so fun. I had a little partner in crime. We could pull the CF card together. We used to
Right.
us gained weight super easily, so we used to drink, like, these weight gaining shakes. I'm sure, Molly, you're familiar.
Yes,
Yeah.
I unfortunately am.
We used to take advantage of our parents and say, "Well, if we drink 2 of these shakes, can we stay up and watch TV?" So I had a little
Yeah,
partner in crime
yeah,
where we got to stay up and we would eat pretzels for salt intake, and we would drink our little weight gaining and watch, like, the new Disney Channel movie. And so for
yeah.
the most part, it was fun to have somebody, there to experience it, but
Yes.
yeah, it
What
was awesome.
kids have to, I don't feel like there's many kids out there that have to, like, convince their parents that I'll drink this shake
I know.
if right? Like, most kids are like, "Give me the milkshake," but I
Yeah, no
totally
serious.
understand that because 'cause they're gross. They're
No,
not
seriously.
good.
They're not good, and they also, like,
No.
we don't know, it was just the principle of, "I'm drinking this and my older siblings don't have to drink this, so let me
Yeah.
get something in return here, for my
Yeah,
for my
exactly.
sacrifice." Yeah,
My
yeah.
mom stopped making me drink those because I wouldn't drink them, and she used to make me Oreo shakes. Like, she'd go to the store and
Yummy.
buy ice cream, marshmallow flush, caramel, like,
Oh my
as many
gosh.
calories as she could pack in that shake, she would make, and so they just, like they would they were not good for me, but they would pack on the calories,
Yeah.
right? And so
You were talking
that's
about it too.
exactly
I
what
would
she
drink,
would
like,
do.
root beer floats, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. 'Cause any my parents were desperate. They were like, "Please just
Oh,
keep it
100%.
on." Yeah, if you're
If it
drinking it,
had
keep
calories,
it on.
eat it, and
Yeah.
as much of it as
Yeah,
you
as
will
much of
eat.
it as you can stomach. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting. A lot of people listening probably don't understand how different CFs especially can be like person for person.
Mhm.
We joke around in the community often that no two-person is the same because our symptoms
Yeah.
just manifest so differently a lot of the time. So how was that like with your sister? Like how's her condition versus your condition? And was that ever, difficult to watch you two have something similar but also be so different? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're so right. It manifests itself so deeply differently in each person. I don't know how to describe it other than like you feel like you're fighting the same battle, and I see us doing the same things, and then one day like we both go to the doctor and take the same test, and we've been doing the exact same things, exposed to the exact same things, and one of us has a decrease in lung function and the other has an increase. And so I feel like it was especially difficult on my parents growing up to kind of think, well, what did we do? What could we have
Right.
prevented here? Yeah. And I think the hard part about CF for both of us is it really I think Eliza has a harder time with it. Her body, at least growing up, she would get sick easier. I think it was more of an immune system thing. She was a lot more
Right.
susceptible to illness, whereas I was kind of able to go through elementary school and I wouldn't get as sick.
Mhm.
The interesting thing though is I think it impacted me a lot more mentally than it impacted her. I've struggled
Right.
a lot with the mental aspect of it, and she's cool as a cucumber with the mental aspect of it. So even I don't think that's something that a lot of people talk about with chronic illness is you do have that
Right.
obviously the symptoms that manifest, but just the mental game that it is. I always tell people I think CF is genuinely like at least for me, 70% the mental game of it all, and
Right.
30% of the actual physical symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been interesting to see, if one of us does have a lung infection, it's kinda like all of a sudden it's the Salem witch trials, like, where did she get it? Like,
Yeah.
what gave this to
Yeah.
her? So I think,
Right.
yeah, growing up, it was always really sad, to see her not do as well. Or, I mean, there were a lot of
Right.
times where I was the one not doing as well and she was the one doing well. And so I think even that, seeing like, it's one thing to you yourself go through it, but I would always tell people growing up, like, I would take it from Eliza before I took it from myself. I'd
Right.
make sure if
Right.
there was a cure, I'd put her in front of me in line. And so
Right.
I think it adds on that mental also. It's not just me dealing with this, it's my sister and we both have to like figure it out. I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You talk a lot about the mental effects of it, and I totally agree with you, and I feel like and you may have a different experience, but I feel like that didn't manifest itself as much until I started to get older, right? Like, I feel like when I was younger, I almost didn't even realize what I didn't realize I should even have mental effects almost a little bit until you start to get older and start to go through things. If you're comfortable talking about it, like, what are some thought processes that you've had to fight with your whole life, and maybe how have you reconciled those, if you even have?
Yeah. It's an ongoing thing. Yeah, I think truly I mean, and for those who aren't aware, Molly, I don't know if you do more, but I do 2 breathing treatments a day, so 1 in the
Yeah,
morning, 1 at
me
night,
too.
and then
Mhm.
I take upwards of 40 pills a day. And so
Mhm.
I think a lot of diseases, it's interesting to have one that truly does manifest itself, not just when I go to the doctor, but seriously every single day. My
Right.
choices are directly indicative of my health. And I have to
Always.
Yes, I have to make that conscious choice the second I wake up to put on my vest, do an inhaled, breathing treatment. And for those, I guess, who aren't aware, I speak like everyone knows this, but not everyone does. You put on a vest that basically shakes the mucus out of you while you're doing inhaled therapies at the same time. But something that doesn't manifest itself when you're at the doctor. This is something that you have to work on every single day. And I remember my mom telling me that, I mean, I was diagnosed when I was 2, so I had lived 2 years not doing any sort of breathing therapies at all, and
Right.
my mom said that I really did struggle with it at first, just because it was foreign, it was loud, it was weird, and the doctor had said to her, "She won't know any different." And I think that's something that I think about a lot because I truly don't know any different. I mean, I wake up every day and no
Right.
matter what, my anxiety does not allow me to not do my treatments. Like, things like that. And I think it was a battle in my mind, especially growing up and seeing kids not do that. I mean, seeing kids at slumber parties that, like, waking up and they just went and ate breakfast. And to me, it was like, "This is
Yeah.
so bizarre, like, you guys can just wake up and go eat breakfast and sleep in, and your parents can wake you up, like,
Right.
10 minutes before you have to leave." And I remember going, to the doctor a lot more than the average kid, and what kid wants to do PFTs? I don't know if anyone knows pulmonary
None.
function tests.
Yeah.
Breathe as hard as you can, and it's stressful, and I think a lot of it mentally came from, and I don't fault anybody for this, but there was a system when I was growing up, Molly, I don't know if you had to do this, but they would mark your, like, how well you're thriving with red, yellow, or green, and so I'd go into the doctor and they'd give me, like they'd say, "Well, for this appointment, you're in the yellow." And, like, I just remember, like, so yellow was, like, "You're
Yeah.
close to a hospitalization, but you're not there yet." Red was, "We're gonna intervene," and green was, "You're doing great." And I
Right.
think more often than not, I was in the yellow, and I remember it was just so scary to me because it was like I was
Right.
doing all that I could, and I mean, health is so different every single day. Every single day I feel like I have
Every
a new
day.
disease. It's crazy. But I would get really nervous seeing that yellow, and then it would start to manifest itself all throughout the 3 months until I went back to the doctor. I would
Right.
just think, "Well, I was in the yellow." And it would turn into this thing of, like, I need to go do this, this, and this, and every single thing that I can because I was in the yellow. Then, of course,
Right.
go back, you're in the green. Great. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing. You go back, you're in the yellow. And it's like, where did I go wrong? What did I forget to do? And so I think it's just that system. It's a mind game, and it's a mind game of
100%.
am I too tired to do a treatment? Well, I can't be because then I'm gonna be in the yellow. Things like that. So I struggled a lot
100%.
with that. I think obviously, I was a Make-A-Wish kid. So,
Me
like
too! I
yes,
was
Make-A-Wish kids.
too!
Make-A-Wish kids that survived. We love to see it.
Heck yeah.
But
Heck
yeah,
yeah.
it was hard, it was hard also to be in 8th grade and a Make-A-Wish kid.
Yeah.
I felt cool telling people, but then, I'd be like, I met One Direction for my Make-A-Wish. So I would say,
Oh
like,
my gosh.
meet One
That is so
Direction.
cool.
Yes, and people would be like, "Oh my gosh, like, what," and still to this day, I struggle with this. They'll say, "What for? How did you get to do that?" And I'm like, "Well, are you sure you wanna ask? Because like,
Yeah, let's not
yeah,
focus on that part.
yeah." I'm like, "That's not relevant." Like, it's So, yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think just the mental game of, like, I think CF has given me some really awesome things in those experiences, but I think it also just in the back of my mind, and even though I'm now at a doctor that does not do that, they stopped that once I turned 18, I still in the back of my mind judge myself on a scale, of am I red, green, or
Yeah.
yellow, and it's just yeah. So that's something that I've really had to overcome and, obviously
Yeah.
the anxiety of it all. to controlling what I can, even though I think this disease is one that you cannot control at all. So,
Right. I
yeah.
think mentally too, that's really hard, and I don't know about for like, how it was for you, but for me, like, that's almost the hardest part to do and feel like you're dedicating all these hours and,
Yeah.
being really intentional about what you do and how you do it, and then you go and sometimes you're still in the red, and
Yeah.
there's no reason for it,
Yeah.
right? Except
Yeah.
for that you're chronically ill, even though
Yeah.
you did everything you could, and that was always a really hard one for me to swallow, and let's talk about this for a second. I also feel like it was really hard to communicate to people how hard cystic fibrosis can be when I don't look sick, right? Like, me and you
Amen.
sitting here, like, nobody would ever guess that we have
Yeah.
cystic fibrosis,
Yeah.
um, which made it significantly harder. Like, I don't know about you, but I had teachers even that would not give me specific things. For example, my 5th grade teacher, we have to take our pancreatic enzymes because we don't digest things by ourselves. Our pancreas is filled with mucus. Um, and she would not let me go to the office to get my medications to eat pizza, like, or have like pizza parties or things. Like, she just wouldn't let me do it. And my parents went in multiple times and just tried to explain, like, she's fine as long as you just let her go to the office and get her
Yeah.
meds. Cause as a kid, they don't let you carry those by yourself. I was more than capable. I'd been doing it my
Oh,
whole
yeah.
life, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
protocol says you can't until I was in junior high, when they would finally start letting me carry my own medications, but yeah, and she wouldn't let me go, and that was always, like, a constant battle all through even high school and stuff. You get new teachers and you explain, like,
Yeah.
kinda what your condition is and stuff, and like, I've had a couple that just look at you and are like, "This girl is just such an attention seeker, and I'm not." Like, I wish I didn't have to, but, like, do you get that, the whole "you don't look sick" thing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I remember, like, there's one while you were talking, I think that's so true. It's so true. And there was one experience that immediately came to mind. I remember I was sitting in 8th grade science class, and we were learning about cystic fibrosis. And there was somebody from behind me that had said, "Oh, isn't that the disease where you get to eat whatever you want?" And I remember it was my crush, which
Oh
added insult to
gosh.
injury. My crush from beside
Yeah.
me my crush from beside me goes, "I
Oh.
wish I had that disease. I wish I had it." And then everyone started piping up and having a conversation like, "How awesome would it be to get to eat whatever you want and not gain weight?" And I remember just sitting there and my science teacher shut the conversation down and she goes, "Well, we shouldn't say that because sometimes there's people that have it that you might not even know have it," as she's looking right at me, and then she just goes back to teaching. And I remember, like, in that moment, like and I still, like, fills me with, like, undiluted rage. It makes me so mad to think about
Right.
because I remember sitting there looking at the board, hearing everyone around me be like, "Oh, that's so cool. I wish I had that disease." I had woken up, obviously, like, an hour earlier than everybody. I had to eat a big breakfast because my parents wouldn't let me leave if I didn't eat, like, a big breakfast to try to
Yeah.
keep weight on. I had a doctor appointment the next week that I was dreading. The medical anxiety is, like, the hardest part of for me. I really struggle with doctors, which is so ironic because like, I I see them all the time, but I just remember in that moment being so angry that everything that I had been through was deduced to this one perk that's not even really a perk when you live it,
Right.
or when your parents are shoving, like,
Right.
green smoothies down your throat every night, like, it's not the most fun ever. And
Yeah.
I just yeah, it's been really interesting, and I remember I had to go to band camp, and they were making me do diabetes testing, so I had to prick my finger, and I was late to band camp because
Mm.
I was hiding and crying, like, because I did not wanna prick
Yeah.
my finger, and my parents were like, "Just the sooner you can do it, the sooner you can go to band camp," and I was like, "I'm not doing it, like, take me out of
Yeah.
band I'm not, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can wait all day, like, I will not be going." And so
Right.
I think it's just that whole struggle, it's hard, especially when people don't think that you look sick, and I think another thing that I've really struggled with is being able to, like, open up to people who
Right.
I meet, and I think it's been especially prevalent once I hit, like, 18 and I've started really
Mhm.
dating, and getting outside of my community, which everyone kind of knows that I have it, into a much larger circle of people that don't know that I have it, and so I think it's also that, when I mention, "Oh, I'm a Make-A-Wish kid," everyone's so taken aback, that, like, I
Right.
qualify for a Make-A-Wish, and even just having those conversations of, "Oh," and a lot of them ask, "Well, you're okay now, right? Like, you look fine," and I'm like, "Actually,
Right.
no, but sure," like, whatever you wanna tell yourself
Yeah.
to make you not worried, like, yeah, you know?
Right,
I don't know.
right. And
Yeah,
it's so hard to explain too, because I don't like, especially they people just don't see the behind the scenes, right?
yeah.
So, like, I'm a show jumper, I jump horses, it's my absolute passion, I love it. But I
So
got into horses because insurance covered therapy riding for the mental, like,
Yes,
effects of
yes.
chronic illness on a little
Mhm.
kid. And that's how I, like, found my passion in
Oh
horses,
my
and then I
gosh.
just wouldn't
Cool.
leave my parents alone about it. I was like, "Please, can I take lessons?" And I I'm 21 and it just hasn't gone away. I just love it. It's my
Yeah,
passion. It's my safe place. It's my escape. It's
yeah,
it's I don't feel sick around my horses. My horses don't treat me any differently because I have this looming disease, but people will hear that I do that and I compete, right? And I'm so thankful for what I am able to do with my condition, but people will hear that and they literally then like, their mind automatically goes to, "She can't be that sick if she's doing this." But what they don't see is, I mean, I've been at multiple competitions where I pass out on my horse in the middle of a ride, and
oh
then
my
I'm off, and then I'm getting checked out by, the EMTs, and,
yeah,
my dad is a surgeon, and so he brings, like, IV fluid to me, and I'll sit on my outside of my horse's stall and get IV fluids, and
oh my gosh.
my cute husband is just amazing, and he'll wake up early, he'll feed my horse, he'll tack my horse up, he'll do all of the care, and literally all I do is ride. Because if I do anything more than that, I can't do it, right? And so
That's
it,
so
like, it takes a village, and
yeah, it
people
does.
just they don't see the times I pass out even when I did everything right. They don't
Amen.
see the times that I sweat so much salt because our sodium chloride channels don't work, that I'm overheated and I'm out for the next 3 days. They don't see what we call horse show hangover at my house, where for the next week, I can't do, like, anything. I expanded my entire energy reserve I had for that
Yeah,
weekend and the
yeah,
rest of the week, and so
yeah,
I am like I just chill in sweatpants and I do almost nothing, just recovering, right? But it's almost like the things we do make our experience invalid to others, and I
yeah,
that's a big reason I started this podcast actually is because I wanted people to see both sides of it and see like I want to talk to people that it's a fight and a struggle to do those things that we love um, in hopes of inspiring other people to, when things do get hard, because they will for everybody, regardless if they're chronically ill, that they choose to,
oh,
find a way to do the things they love instead. Let's go to kind of a more fun topic. You brought up dating. How was that for you with cystic fibrosis, and where are you at now with that? Just like tell me all the details.
yeah, girl talk. I well, so dating with CF is really interesting. I remember having this conversation with my mom about who do I tell? You know, and at what point do I tell them?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
think there's a lot of stigma around it, you know, and I never wanted I
100%.
think honestly, if we're getting very real, I think I was always really worried about putting that on somebody else, and I
Yeah.
still kind of am. You know, I still do struggle with it, and I remember just having the most anxiety at, like, 19 because, like, a guy that I dated wanted to go camping, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna ruin his life," you know, I'm like, "He can't be with me.
Yes.
I can't really go
Yeah.
camping." You know, and I just remember,
Yeah.
like, just to me, it was like the things that I couldn't do were a huge deal, or the things that I could
Mhm.
do with a lot more effort than the average
Right.
person.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so, I mean, right now, I am in a committed relationship. We are getting married in August, so
Yay! That's
really
so
exciting.
exciting.
Yes, that's so exciting, and so but even that, I mean, he's the nicest guy, like, I could talk about him for hours and not get bored, so, like, don't even get me
Mhm.
started, but I I just, like, even that, I mean, he's a nurse, so he obviously had a greater
He
understanding of just, you know,
understands.
everything with that accompanies that, but I still think it's really scary, you know, for me, it was really scary to, like and Molly, I don't know if you relate to this, but, like, even meeting the family, and I've met a lot of guys'
Yeah,
families, they
so
say,
much so.
"Oh, yeah, Tessa has, like, cystic fibrosis," and they say it so flippantly, but I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Please,
Yeah.
that's not first meeting talk, like, I don't want" I don't want them to
Yeah.
and what my mom always says to people is like, "Don't go Google it." Like, let her tell you what her
Yeah.
experience is because it can be scary to Google, you know, and it can be scary, especially when they don't really know my exact, symptoms and everything, I can see how that
Right.
would be really scary. But
Right.
yeah, so it's always been interesting dating, and I remember there was one time I dated a guy who lived like 3 hours away, and he invited me to go stay the weekend at his house, and it was like you would have thought that I
It's
was like
anxiety
being
driven.
attacked by lions that whole weekend. I was like, this is so scary. I've never done my treatments away from home, especially without my parents, like traveling. Don't even get me started. A whole ordeal to like get your treatment stuff.
Yeah.
Like I always have like 3 bags because I have so much medicine to take with me.
They always get stopped by
And
security.
they stop it at
They're
security, and it's
every time.
embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't get from point A to point B without significant strife that, like, would not be
Yeah.
there otherwise. So, like,
Yeah.
I think it's been a real learning experience, and I'm very grateful to have somebody now that, is so kind, and I think at his core, he's just very gentle and kind, and I think especially with a disease like this, I just need someone that's just so gentle and patient, and so I think there were a lot of times where I was really nervous about, "Oh, I'm nervous, that this is gonna be too much to put on somebody," and I've really, really
Yeah.
struggled with that, and I know we've talked about that,
Yeah.
just
We
the
have.
struggle of, am I putting all this, and I feel like, I'll be honest, before people, and not even dating, but just in life, have made me feel bad about it, and have made
Yeah.
some
Me
very,
too.
very rude comments about it. Yeah, and I'm sure you've gotten that, and I'm sure that's just the reality when you're dealing with an illness of any kind. You're gonna get
Mhm.
comments that you just don't understand what compelled them to say it. But
Yeah.
I think what I learned, especially being in this relationship, his name is Weston, like, you're not asking for too much for the right person. The right person will never make
Right.
it's their new reality,
Right.
and they will just accept it with open arms. And so the times I was worried about asking for too much in relationships, in friendships, whatever it is, I think I was
They're
just
not
asking
right.
the wrong people. Yeah. So just
Yeah.
ask the right people.
That's really profound, and that's something that I struggled with 100% too when I
Yeah.
was getting married. My husband, his name's Seth, and I remember I almost broke up with him, like, 2 months before we got married. Like, I was
Wow.
almost like because I felt so much deep guilt about,
Yes.
like, putting that on him, like, because in my brain, I was like, "He doesn't understand what he's about to take on," right?
Yeah.
And so in my head, that was what I kind of told myself. I was like, "He doesn't understand what he's about to take on," even though, but it's true, like, for the right person, it's not too much. He's the best ever. Like,
Yeah.
he goes above and beyond for everything, and I actually remember a specific hospital visit where I had a respiratory therapist, and, I mean, you were the same way, we've talked about this, like, especially in junior high, it was easy to not tell people, it was easy
Yes.
to fly under the
Yes.
radar, it was because you were, you still lived with your parents, your care was at
Yeah.
home, if I when I didn't come to school at 7 and I came at, 2nd period and or 3rd period instead of 1st, I just told everybody because I wanted to sleep in. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was like
yeah,
I
yeah,
decided it made me feel awesome that I didn't have
yeah,
to go right when everybody else did, right? And so I, I had a respiratory therapist that my mom was totally tattling on me to my respiratory therapist. She was like, "No, she won't, do da 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 in front of her friends. She doesn't like to do it." And
yeah.
this respiratory therapist, her name's Winnie, she got in my face and she was like, "Girl, girl, like they are not worth it." And she went off on this like sermon at me and I'm like maybe 12. Like I
That's
was like I remember,
yeah, you're like,
leaning
"Okay,
back and being
okay."
like, "Oh my
Yeah,
gosh," but she was so right, like, I wish I could go
yeah,
back and almost, like, thank her for that. Because now whenever somebody does anything rude or, isn't
yeah,
accommodating, right? Like, I went on a trip in high school that my friends wouldn't wait for me to do my treatments to, like, go to aquariums and stuff, and so
yeah,
I wandered Atlanta, Georgia by myself trying to find where my friends were because I had done my treatments that morning, right? And so
yeah,
that was just so not safe. But in my
yeah,
brain, the whole time I was thinking, like, after I got home and told my mom that, all I could hear was Winnie's voice in my head.
yeah,
And her, like, I wish I should have grabbed myself in the mirror at that point and been like, "Girl, what are you doing? Like, what why are
yes,
you choosing to be around these people? Like,
yeah,
they're not being the type of friends you need, right?"
yeah,
And chronic illness totally just adds, like, a whole another level
it
of, like, the
does.
people you need, right?
Yeah, it does.
Which is a lesson I wish I would have learned sooner, and I'm sure you can relate to that, and it's still
Oh, yeah,
hard sometimes, but it's a
oh,
lot
yeah,
better, especially now that I have Seth, I'm like, "I don't need anyone to be nice
yeah.
to me, just Seth."
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I
So
totally agree, and I think it also, like, my acceptance of myself has boosted tenfold ever since meeting, Weston and his family. Like, I think
Right.
I would get really worried that people would assume just because I have this, I wouldn't make a good partner. You know what I mean? Or I wouldn't be able
Right.
to
Mhm.
fulfill all these needs or whatever. And I think once I
Right.
met people that didn't make me feel like that, it was just exciting. It was like
Right.
I feel more confident in myself, being able to put this side of myself out there. But yeah, and
Right.
it's a big deal. I had so many friends growing up that just were not very nice about it, and or not very accommodating.
Right.
It makes me so mad now because if I had the confidence now that I
Same.
did back then, that would have been a whole different friendship
Right.
discussion. But, like, I remember
Right.
once one of my friends in middle school posted a meme. I had gotten back from my Make-A-Wish, and a few days later, and he knew, he posted a meme about a
Yeah.
Make-A-Wish kid dying. And I remember even just in the moment reading that, and I just bawled my eyes out because I was like, no
That
one's
is
ever
so
gonna
not
see me.
okay.
I was like, no one,
Yeah.
like, do people not understand that that's like, and of course, I'm sure he didn't mean to target
They don't
me.
think about it, right?
Yeah,
Like, they just
like,
don't like, people don't think
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's
How
interesting.
Yeah, how do you think, like, what are some ways your thought processes have changed having CF? Because I don't know about you, but growing up, I was always told, like, "Oh, you're so mature for your age. You're so mature for your age."
Yeah,
And I feel like that was always because, frankly, I had to go through significantly more than the kids that were also my age had to go through, right? I mean, my parents were always really good with my care, and they would, like, involve me in my decisions, right? Like, I
yeah.
never once went to the hospital that I felt I was forced into the hospital, like,
Wow.
from a really, really little age, right? Like, my parents would sit me down and be like, "Look, this is what's happening. This is" I mean, I remember having my parents look at the doctors and be like, "Talk to her." And I'm
Wow.
like, 8, you know? Like, and so, like, and they were always supportive, like, it wasn't like they weren't gonna
Yeah,
help weigh in and help me, and as a
yeah.
little kid, those decisions weren't always made, like, excitedly, right? Like,
No,
"Yes, I will go
no,
to
of
the
course.
hospital," but, like,
Yeah,
I understood why what was happening needed to
yeah,
happen,
yeah,
and so I feel like there was almost a disconnect pretty consistently between a lot of the kids my age because they didn't think like I did. Like, how are
yeah.
some of the ways that did you experience that? What are some ways that you felt like your thought processes are different now because of your cystic fibrosis?
Absolutely, I did, and I remember hearing when 5 Feet Apart, the movie came out,
Yes.
the actors did an interview, and they were like, "The CF kids are just so much more mature, and it's because they've been forced to grow up with older people, like doctors and stuff, they don't grow up with kids their age." And I honestly disagree with that. I think the
I
thing
do
that
too.
made me more mature is the fact that I was, at a very early age, faced with my own mortality, and I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, I mean, I don't know how much the viewers know or whatever, but Trikafta is a breakthrough drug that the FDA released, and now that has
Right.
raised the quality of life and also the life expectancy tremendously.
So
I
much.
remember being in the doctor's office and they well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but they were telling me, like, "Whatever you're doing, you need to use protection because now you can get pregnant, and now it's like,
Yeah.
you can sustain a pregnancy, and now you can have kids." I was like a teenager, I was like, "Okay," like,
Yeah.
I was like my
You're
dad
like
in the room, I'm like, "All right, like, thanks for telling." I
Yeah.
remember just, like, having all these conversations that I had never had before with an outlook on life and, like, an excitement for life that people had never really had for me. So when I got on
Right.
Trikafta, it was, like, a huge change, and all of a sudden, really, my lungs improved tremendously and, a bunch of things improved, but I think my take with CF is it did make me grow up very fast, and it's almost like I I always expected that something would come around that would maybe help, with how fast medicine moves, and I'm very grateful for Trikafta, but I'm almost grateful that I didn't grow up knowing that Trikafta was a thing that would eventually be out there because I feel like it gave me a greater sense of, appreciation for the people in my life and the time that I had with them.
Right.
I think even without CF, tomorrows and how many tomorrows we have, no one knows. And I know CF people that are now living to like the hundreds, and like I just think
Right.
no one ever knows. And so it just makes me really like want to grab onto the people. And when I love really hard, and especially like now with Weston and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
fun I just love loving, I guess is my thing.
Yeah.
I just love being like a lover and like
Yeah.
my family close. I think I'm grateful to CF for giving me that perspective, and
Right.
yeah, maybe I didn't need as intense of a perspective, but but I
Yeah.
got it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. I feel the same way as that, and I feel like a deep sense of gratitude sometimes too,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
feel like so I started college. I was a little later. I again kind of that mental block you have to get over.
Yeah.
I just like legitimately did not think I could do college because I had never planned on doing college because I
Yeah.
had doctors straight up tell me like I would plan up until like high school and I wouldn't
That's
make big plans
yes.
after that.
Yes.
And I like being a little kid and being like okay. So, like, I never
Yes.
planned
It
past that. I
messes with you.
never
It messes with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I never planned past high school because I just had been told for so long, and I mean, my parents never told me that, but when the
Yeah.
doctors are telling you that, there's a
Yeah,
sense of
you're
you
like
that's like, "Well, my doctors say this, you just
yeah.
love me
Yeah.
and are hopeful,"
Yeah.
like, and so there was a part of me that like, I graduated high school and was kinda like, "What do I do with my life
Yeah.
now?"
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I I'm still thriving.
Yeah. I know, like, what's
What do
going on?
I do?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
like, I didn't start college until I was 20 because I just didn't think I could, and, like, high school is so hard for me because of attendance and, things like that, and so but once I did, I I remember like, I still to this day and I'm 21 now, so I've only been in college for, like, a year, but I will still walk around campus sometimes and be like, "This is crazy."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm walking around college, like, and I'm doing this thing. Like, I'm not just walking around just because I feel like it. Like, I am here.
Yeah.
I am a
Yeah.
student. I get pretty decent grades. Like, I am doing it.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
even times that I'll have a bad attitude or be like I remember I was taking the biology test or something one time, and I was like, "This sucks. I hate
Yeah.
biology. This is
Yeah.
hard." And then like there was an automatic switch in the back of my brain that went, "We're doing biology homework. This is crazy. Like, this is so
Yes.
cool." And
Yes.
like I almost wish more people could feel like that, but not with the chronic illness aspect of it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it is so
It's
freeing
free.
sometimes,
Yeah, it
Like, I'm
is.
like, to not even have to think about it and be like, "I hate biology homework." I'm doing
Yeah,
biology
it's like, "I'm
homework,
doing it." Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is such such a fun mindset, frankly. I don't know how to else to
It's
explain it
so
except
true.
for
Yeah.
it's freeing and it's fun, and even
Yeah.
Seth, like, I've been married for 2 years now, and I'll look over at Seth sometimes and just be like, "Huh, I'm married to him, like, that is
Yeah.
awesome,"
Yeah.
you know? Just, like, with the most, like, excitement for life, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's, like,
Yeah.
truly how I feel. It's not
Yeah.
just an attitude I have to cultivate, like, that is how I feel, and
Oh, I love
I
it.
don't think our viewers realize this, but me and Tess actually work together. We're working on with a company that's got some really exciting stuff coming
Yeah.
out for antimicrobial resistance and that could frankly like change both of our lives
Even more.
completely forever and so many more people. Like
Yeah.
it will be world changing and I'm so excited, but that's how me and Tessa met.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were both told we shouldn't even plan on having careers and we're over here
Mhm.
working on a company that could potentially be like world changing.
Yeah.
And so it really is
Look at
I
us now.
think that's kind of yeah, I know. I think that's probably kind of the key takeaway from this episode is like love life, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just it's just fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Tessa, is there anything else you want to say about just loving life and
Oh
just
gosh.
like anything else you want to say or you feel like people should know or any experiences? You kind of wrap us up with what you
Uh,
think.
I think just don't take anything for granted, and I think that I'm saying that just as much to myself. I'm not saying that to be like, "You don't have to do treatments, go out and seize the day." Even if you
Right?
do do that, like, live the life I can." It's like, I'm not even saying that because I think at the end of the day, everyone, despite whatever circumstances whatever cards they've been dealt, whatever circumstance they've been born into, your life is worth living. There's so many good things, and I wish I could just go back and, like, tell the younger me that was, like, crying in her bed, feeling like, "How am I ever gonna be loved?" or "How am I ever gonna go to college?" Or
Right.
whatever, and I also wish I could just go back and hug my parents who were told to wrap things up at 18. That's what they were told for me.
Right. Me
And
too.
just say, like, don't worry too much about it, like, I'm thriving, life is so good, and even when it's not good, life is good. And
Right.
life is meant to be lived, it's meant to be
It
experienced.
is.
If we were in life right now with only experiencing joy, then we wouldn't even be happy. 'cause that's all we know.
Right.
But you have
It's
to know
true.
the struggle and to see yourself through the hard times, to see yourself through the really good times. And so I'm just so grateful. And yeah, Molly and I are working on some big stuff.
Amen.
It's gonna be so fun. But in the meantime, life is just, life is so good despite it all. I just hope that
Exactly.
everyone could just take away that life is good and it's still worth it even when times get, really hard or seem impossible. It's never truly impossible.
Right. It's true.
That's my
It's
monologue.
true. Well, thank you, Tessa, for coming.
Of
This has been such a
course.
special episode. You're my first guest. You're my friend. We go through a lot of same things. Like, this has been so incredible. So anyway,
An
thank
honor
you
and a
so much for
privilege.
coming.
Of
And
course.
to our viewers, life truly is meant to be lived. So
Life is meant to be
anyway.
lived.